I've been wandering around here for a while, Stugotz, lamenting publicly in a way that probably has irritated our audience. This American movement toward if you have power and money in sports or outside of sports, you can get away with absolutely anything and everything if you're just willing to lean into being shameless. That shamelessness becomes a shield of immunity that will protect you from anything in the way of consequences. And you've heard me talk about it with Dana White. Not a lot of precedent for a person in that position of power in sports slapping his wife in public in a video that gets out and there being no consequences because he's got that much power. And the other one who's built just like him is Vince McMahon, who has had an assortment, a large resume filled with garbage that makes it known to all involved. It is no secret, a truly despicable human being. But we have finally found, evidently, where it is that the powerful, rich white man in America can actually lose something that he cares about. And the line, evidently, is in a lawsuit, it being alleged that you shot a woman during a threesome. That evidently is the final straw on Vince McMahon's WWE career. He does not want to leave that. He has been reluctant in every way to leave WWE, but he resigned at the end of last week while denying all of the allegations, but also got away from the entirety of this thing that he cares about, that he certainly didn't want to leave, and that he was exceptionally stubborn about not leaving. And I've got to be honest, I was surprised that he was gone only because I thought that he was going to be gone 5 or 6 other times, and he just stays there. And somehow, because he built the whole thing, somehow, because it's scripted and it's not really sports and he's just running a business, but now when you've got something that's publicly owned, there are stockholders and there are consequences. And I was relieved to finally see that there were consequences, that this man is being punished for what has been a vile, vile run of terror through making that sport hugely popular, bigger than it has ever been, but also making him so powerful that it didn't seem like anything was ever going to happen to him.
But surprised that he wasn't gone 5 stories ago, because I'm with you.
Yeah, well, he resigned last year,
but he was still hanging around the fringes.
Well, no,
right?
he was. I mean, there were allegations that he had people in place to help. Ronda Rousey actually levied one of those. She called out Bruce Pritchard as someone that was in creative, that as long as he's there, Vince McMahon will have influence over the company. But Vince McMahon did resign. Stephanie McMahon came in as a co-CEO with Nick Khan, and then Vince McMahon decided, you know what? I overreacted. I shouldn't have stepped down, and he came back in. And it was that action that made a real public headache for TKO, the company, the parent company behind WWE. What I find really fascinating, I've read the entire lawsuit, and WWE...
You left here last week shocked, and it's hard to shock you.
I was watching Mike walk around the office with a phone in his hand reading that story. It was crazy. He was freaking out.
It's depraved. It is a horrible abuse of power. You can certainly, if you follow the product close enough, even though they omit certain names, you can start deducing who is being talked about. And this is where WWE has a real problem on their hands. This is a toxic work environment culture, and this is just an isolated snapshot of probably something that was indicative of decades-long abusing of power. If this lawsuit continues, and TKO and WWE better hope it doesn't, you are going to see this play out in the public forum, and it is a nightmare scenario in terms of toxic workplace environments. I read that Ari Emanuel has had his daughter working in this company for several years now. So that has to scare him. What I found shocking about the resignation, just knowing Vince McMahon's will, is it was discussed prior to it that it was nearly impossible to oust Vince McMahon. Even if the shareholders held a vote, they would still need his signature. willingly to go around on it. His share in TKO was locked in. And the way that it happened was Slim Jim, who is a big presenting sponsor, has been synonymous with that product for several years, came out with a statement and it pulled its sponsorship from one of the marquee matches there. And then 2 hours later, you have news of Nick Khan announcing to the company that Vince McMahon has resigned, making this way easier than it could have been if he decided to fight it. But my main takeaway, and you can start looking at very suspicious timing, shock resignations from the company. Like, people that have done some reporting have known that there were rumors of this that maybe the company knew a year ago, even though the company's public stand is, we found out about this in real time. A horrific abuse of power. People being put in place and holding positions for years and decades in some cases because they were some of Vince's boys. And Vince taking care of his boys, trafficking this woman who is stuck in an impossible predicament, using her as a bargaining chip in negotiations. It is a horror story of the highest order. And if this continues to play out, if they don't settle, it might just be a drop in a relative bucket. Because I can't. Because when you have this toxic a work environment, there is no way this is an isolated incident. And when it comes to Vince McMahon, there's been several reporting that we know it is not with him. Crazy story. But I think the most shocking part about all of it is that he actually resigned. Because I thought he was built like everybody else who just is stubborn and will refuse to resign. And this actually shows for the first time that there's a new sheriff in town. There isn't a McMahon running WWE. There isn't a McMahon child that is next in line to replace Vince. This is a public company now, and it's a whole new day.
One of the things that is truly outside of my realm of understanding, Stugotz, I don't have an ability to grasp some of what it is that we're talking about. If you think of rape as something that the people who study this type of stuff would tell you, it's an act of power. It's not even a sexual act. It's power is what's happening there. To distort it so much that you arrive at the point that the detail, I think, now there are a lot of details in this lawsuit that are really troubling, and I should have probably said before we even headed down this conversation, I should have probably trigger alerted all of you on some of these details from this lawsuit are truly horrifying, and the sex trafficking on its own, I think, is something that no one should be immune to. But I think the detail that got him gone for people who don't want to read the entirety of a lawsuit or just see bullet point after horrifying bullet point is the act of being so dehumanizing to somebody that you on them. That one detail
of all the details.
There's plenty.
There's plenty more.
There's a nameless WWE superstar that everyone, because of the timeline and because of the descriptive nature of the lawsuit, has deduced this is Brock Lesnar. There was a time in the lawsuit where Brock Lesnar has communication with this victim, and it's working towards Vince McMahon trying to set up a party amongst the three. Said WWE superstar gets too inebriated at dinner, God, what that might look like, that he just hops back on the plane. And then Vince McMahon goes back with the victim and role plays as if he is Brock Lesnar in this case. And that's where a lot of physical injuries happened to the alleged victim. The story that that her lawyers put out there of her being barely able to walk, in pain for weeks. All this happening, by the way, during the COVID lockdown. It's sick, depraved behavior. Imagining that other male talent from the WWE's roster is in the room, him showing pictures to people, as he described as tech boys, photos of this woman where she's saying, and you see the text like, please don't do that, and he doesn't care. He's like, oh, they love it. A referee that's unnamed, another high-ranking a WWE official that is named, his physical rehabilitator That's something that seemed like that was a long-running thing. The head of talent relations, and that was a brutal, where he essentially forced this woman, Vince McMahon did, to serve herself as breakfast to her head of talent relations, town to town, meet in the hotel, report back the details of your sexual encounter. Just a nightmare that this woman was trapped in.
I don't understand, Stugotz. I really don't. It's such a distortion that it is legitimately confusing to me. How? And if you follow professional wrestling at all, you know that it is littered with partying and abuse of substances, and that the lifestyle is several realms beyond gluttonous and decadent and dangerous. Professional wrestlers die early. There's a lot of physical pain involved. There's a lot of medicating in order to sort of numb the physical pain. But to live in that world for so long, to oversee and have the power in that world for so long, that it distorts you so much as a human being that the only way that you can keep chasing the highs of the highs is to dehumanize people more and more, because you've been doing it for so many years and so many decades when you're in charge of overseeing this thing, and there are never consequences. To get to the point where you are somebody who can behave this way and not think it's going to become something that becomes a public shame for you that comes with consequences, that you keep pushing the envelope further and further on how much you're going to dehumanize people.
Because you think you can.
By exerting your power over them?
Well, in part because he did. He came to an agreement with an NDA, and the reason why this is playing out in public is because the payment stopped. The payment stopped, and he was in breach of the non-disclosure.
I'm not kidding you, Stugotz, where when I'm reading this, I don't understand how you reach a level of that kind of evil without realizing that you've become evil. I don't know, Stugotz, if you have seen lately what has been happening with Tyreek Hill's personal life out in public, but for the uninitiated, before Tyreek Hill got to Miami, before Tyreek Hill really got to professional stardom, he had incidents of physical abuse with his wife and with children. And he came and rehabbed some of that, and time passed. And so when he was on Hard Knocks, what was presented to you with access in exchange for access was his marital status now. And they took you inside his home, and he was looking at finances with his wife in the living room. And what was presented to the audience was loving, and I don't know if it was mythologizing, but all of it seemed like something opposite the details that we had learned about Tyreek Hill before. And people are allowed to change, people are allowed to learn, but it was glossed up, it was shiny, it was a love story that was presented on Hard Knocks.
It seemed like a normal relationship that most couples could relate to. Well, that's what it seemed like.
It was intimate in a couple of ways. It was meant to look intimate because you're granted an access to a star's life inside his home that you don't normally get. And it was also the intimacy of a relationship that allows you to see another side of this human being that when you're seeing him at the facility, it's not what it looks like. But then his house catches fire in an incident in which it was reported that a child was playing with a lighter. And then soon thereafter, 2 months after getting married, there's a petition that files for divorce, that Tyreek Hill has filed for divorce. He denies initially, even though there is paperwork, he denies that there is any trouble whatsoever, that he is getting divorced at all. He is saying that everything is fine, and he doesn't necessarily understand how the paperwork has been filed. And now he's saying that people have been fired, and there is a, quote, bleeping bonehead who filed divorce papers. And I ask you, and I ask the audience, at LeBatardShow is the place that you can vote on the polls. Do you believe that someone files a petition for divorce by accident?
On someone else's behalf?
Do you believe that that's a thing that can happen that has any basis in reality? Once you've gotten to the point of a petition being filed, it may be a mistake, but it's not a mistake of paperwork. Like, you may have gotten emotional and made a mistake. You might have gotten so angry that you did something in a moment that you did not want to do. But paperwork does not get filed by mistake on this sort of thing, I don't think.
It's also, it can't be, right? It can't be someone who's close to them saying, hey, you know what? This doesn't look right. I'm going to file for divorce on their behalf. Like, that's impossible.
I mean, we all have our divorce papers signed, ready to be turned in. Like, right? Don't we all do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
It's sarcasm. That's ridiculous. He would have had to sign something.
I understand, especially with Tyreek Hill being a public figure and his history prior to coming to Miami certainly has been scrutinized. For this one, if you're able to isolate just the week that married couple probably had, I'm good. Like, kind of largely ignoring it. I think Tyreek has kind of embarrassed himself with the community notes, but I could see how an argument about the status of your marriage can start after your house catches fire. I don't have anything in my life that's happened like that, but I have almost lost my marriage over a sock in a laundry missing. What? So, like...
Oh, we need to hear the story now.
No, it's just like...
We've heard it before. Yeah. It's the second time he's used that example.
It's just sometimes little things are the start of much bigger things.
Right.
And in this case, the little thing is a multi-million-dollar mansion catching fire. I just see how this can happen.
So you're saying you get cranky about the sock, and then the truth comes out on bigger things, right?
Well,
yes.
In this instance, it was reported that a child started the fire. I'm just saying, there are family dynamics here at play and a pretty large traumatic event that could help explain why someone considered divorce.
I don't think there's any like, oh, why, what happened aspect to it for me. For me, it's like he tried to deny a public filing and pretend like it never happened, which like it's a public filing. And this actually happened to Brian Kelly a year ago. And a local Baton Rouge network posted a story that he had filed for divorce against his wife, and then he and I guess his kids tweeted that it was not true, and they were all at dinner together, and it was a really awkward and weird situation. And then people were like speculating that maybe it was the wrong Brian Kelly, but it wasn't, because he was from Massachusetts, and it had like his address in it, and so fans found his address, and I mean it was like a whole messy thing. And then I guess 4 days later they were like, we're actually not getting divorced anymore. But it was the same thing. It's like, this is public record. Actually, this happened with Tua last year. Remember when he got married and Andy Slater saw the filing and asked him about it, and he was like, I kind of wanted this to be private. And it's like, well, this is public record now. It just, the denial, I think, is what makes this like a newsworthy thing.
I feel bad for the assistant that got fired, because he just did, or she just did what they were asked to do.
What Tyreek asked
take
him
this,
to do.
this thing, go file it with the court. And then he does it, and Tyreek's like, who did this? You're fired.
Is it weird that when Chris was talking about divorce papers and everyone having them signed, that I believed him, that I thought I was like being left out? Like, I didn't know this was a thing.
I think we all were looking at him and understood that he was being sarcastic, but the look on your face made him say out loud, I'm just joking, because you were so baffled. But this is what happens to Stugotz when he does God Bless Football, and then we ride him through 3 hours of the car wash after that. He's so done by this stage of the show on Mondays.
Yeah.
The things that you get jealous of are so weird to me. Like, you're jealous that you don't have signed divorce papers, because Chris was joking about having that. And you someone else had that, so you wanted the signed divorce papers also.
I just thought it was a thing that I wasn't doing, and it does seem efficient if indeed one day you want to file for divorce. You already have the papers, they're signed, you're ready to go, you're done. I mean, in and out mission.
You believed him because his mom's a lawyer, right?
I don't know why. I believed him because of what Dan said. I'm tired. I believed him. I did.
Okay, because
it was very convincing.
If his mom wasn't a lawyer, I'd be like, there's no way Chris knows how to draft divorce papers. He doesn't know how to start that process.
Sign, right?
My mom's a lawyer, and I don't know how to do that. I would have to Google it.
This is one of the places.
How do I get a divorce?
Where I start making some of the mistakes that I make, because I was about to make some sort of reference on where there's smoke smoke, there's fire that I didn't make because I was just sort of confused by what was happening with Stugotz, where he's looking at you seriously, and you had to walk back the idea that we all have divorce papers already written up somewhere in our home in the case that you got an emergency file and then get out of town.
I was wondering if Abby had them. I didn't. I started thinking a little bit, you know?
I have them, and I'm not even
thinking
married.
is a bad thing.
You ever wonder if she asked you to sign something? You're like, what is this that I'm signing?
All the time.
I'm so excited to see what's going to become of Chris Cody's Instagram algorithm now that he has searched divorce on his device.
Billy, I thought of you because did you see which hotel is going to be the media hotel in Las Vegas for everyone in this? It's perfect. It's actually perfect because that hotel was on the cutting edge of being the height of advancement in 1994 when we put a pyramid in Las Vegas, like an Egyptian pyramid. It's shaped like a triangle.
A pyramid.
And the light at the top of it evidently is one of the few things that can be seen from space. I think the Luxor has hit a certain number of hard times that don't make them spend. I think that light costs something like $1 million a day. Can you look some of this up for me? Because I think they stopped using that light that way, but that light can be seen from space. And now during the Super Bowl, it's going to be shaped perfectly like a Dorito. It's going to be advertising for Doritos because it's shaped like a Dorito.
Yeah, they're wrapping one of the sides as a giant Dorito. So if you're like flying in or whatever and you're going past it, you see a giant Dorito. Can I say something weird? In all the Super Bowls that we have done that I've traveled for, I have never stayed in the media hotel. And I wonder if I'm missing out on that. Like, is there something going on at the media hotel that I wish I was part of?
Well, you might see like Rob Ryan walk by. That was the highlight of my media hotel stay in Miami.
That's what Super Bowl week is all about.
Is what you're saying.
I've only ever stayed at the media hotels, Billy, and they're usually like the airport Marriott Courtyard or like the airport Hilton or something like. It's always by the airport. It's always a hike from wherever the convention center is. So the fact that they're staying at the Luxor to me is like I'm a little surprised, but I feel like the airport Marriott might be a little bit better in this case. I'm not sure.
You were saying that like I should like feel like I'm not missing out, but I feel like I'm missing out more, to be perfectly honest.
Well,
with
Rob
you.
Ryan, I mean.
No, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Rob Riggles walking around.
You're shooting very high
Riggs.
with Rob Ryan.
No, Riggs
and
is a Super Bowl staple.
Like, listen to me.
Look at that. Look at that hotel.
He's staying at the Cosmo.
You guys saying Rob Ryan and Rex Ryan and Rob Riggle, it's going to be Ray Rotto. Like, you guys are shooting.
We'll take them.
I'm telling you,
What's he
Rob
doing Tuesday,
Ryan
10
was
to
staying
1?
at the
Don't
media
threaten me with a
hotel.
good time. I have confirmed that you can indeed see the Luxor from space, and it's one of like 11 things that you can see from space. The Grand Canyon, the Palm Island, the Great Wall of China. This shows virtue signal.
My penis.
Really, Stugotz, go sit in the penalty box.
Damn it.
Like, honestly, like what? I mean, you're just.
How many times do I have to tell studio team to not talk directly into Stugotz's ear?
That, are you kidding me? That could not
There's
have come
no way that
from
was
another
him.
room.
None of us said it to him, and we're all just like, he wouldn't have said that.
No, he wouldn't have come up with that.
Doesn't make
Ask him.
any sense.
He can't hear us.
His
Ask him.
penis is famously small.
It is. Luxor Light, $51 an hour, by the way.
That's not accurate. It's not $51.
Was he not listening?
He gets so bad at the end of Mondays. Have you noticed this, Billy? Have you noticed how he?
Well, he's not good to start Mondays either. So when are the good times?
What day is he really cooking?
He said $51 a day on the light. That is not what the light costs at the Luxor to beam into space.
But what does that even mean?
Into space at the top of the Luxor.
No, I know, but what does he mean by it costs $51 a day?
But wait till Tuesday, though. He'll really get it going then.
I'll tell you this. I googled Luxor light cost, and it says the lamp was first powered on in October 1993. Blah 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 blah. Each lamp is worth $1,200 and 7,000 watts, and when it's operating at full power, the system costs $51 per hour, with $20 per hour for the electricity used for its 315,000 watts. So it doesn't cost $1 million a day either. It costs somewhere between 51 and $1 million.
I fed him the line.
Had a good run of songs on this show, both created by members of this show and fans alike. And I have something in my inbox that I'm not super crazy about. And I know we have a set standard here, and we don't guarantee airplay just because someone made a song. Fleminem, multiple Suey nominees in his history, but he did a collaboration with Izzy Gutierrez, and I believe it's a Drake cover. And, you know, it's long. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I can. It's okay. I gotta admit, if it didn't have Izzy Gutierrez attached to it, I probably wouldn't play it. But this is the type of creativity I do want to encourage.
It's got a high degree of difficulty too. It's not like just an easy song to do. So got to give him a little
But
credit.
this
there.
build-up is not the greatest of build-ups.
Terrible sell.
It's not. Tell you what, I'm gonna play it,
Setting the bar low, though.
and you tell me when to stop it.
Okay.
Cling, cling, cling.
5 or 6 months ago, I turned our one to a funeral to the people.
What?
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Cling, cling, cling. All right, stop. All right, go ahead.
About Stofers just like Dano. We was acting like Leo DiCaprio. If you think that Amin would just leave the show, you should all take unlimited PTO. Duh. Israel 2.0, Flem and Izzy, we spit like Van Gundy, bro. Stand for me and I might go to Mas. Might go to Mas. Wait, the Dolphins just lost. So why go to Mas?
Biggest damn Super Bowl. Okay, picture this. We send 2 guys with 30 people that they need to do a show. Get Napoleon, Lamar Jackson speech dance predictable as a to a throw. I love discussing all time when it's Stugotz debate about who to go. I'm like road wins, do it again. Super Bowls, who to go, who to go. Lamar and choked. All these Swifties at the Super Bowl because a kick that went bad in January in New York where the Bills get a dome. Big as the what? Visit the what? Swim at the what? Biggest damn Super Bowl.
Show fans so thirsty to put me in beef, disgusted like I was the fine bucket thief. I look at the tweets and start sucking my teeth. I'm letting it rock, I mean love's a mystique. I still want to get me a pod with Cody. We talking FJs in the splash and we pee. Just know if you diss me, a small part of you wants to kiss me, and not let you call me that deep. I'm known for the pick on the train tracks, it's pretty iconic, colder than a shirtless Kelsey. Still let the leader get bigger, they're waiting on the kid to get dropped, but I'm bored as no B. Love when they ask if can fill every seat. It's only Foxworth and Pablo and me. Not Amici, I can't play in the league, but right now I feel like I'm Big Tony C. Swish, 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 swish. Yeah, Big Tony C.
I am reading Stugotz here about the Luxor light. It is evidently as strong as 42,000 lighthouses combined. When it was first unveiled, it did cost $1 million a year, not $1 million a day, in order to light the sky, light space, and it attracts evidently, and they couldn't have foreseen this in any way, bats, grasshoppers, and an assortment of crazed insects that make...
And prop comics.
But it prevents boats from crashing into it, so...
That is...
Take the good with the bad, I guess.
That is a positive. Yes, thank you. I appreciate it, Billy.
So does my penis. I'll show myself the door.
Because I was speaking of pyramids earlier, I wanted to ask you a question that my wife came home with the other day that I hadn't considered. Jessica's going with you, and it's unfortunate because I would like to have her for this question.
Well, did you tell her it was the aliens that made them?
I did not. My wife went to a museum when she was in New York, and she came back from the museum, and there was an actual, tomb. There were tombs that had been moved from ancient Egypt, and there was a coffin with a mummy in it, ornate mummy. And she asked me, and it's something I simply had not considered before, whether bones should be moved from a resting place, especially bones that had been wrapped this ornately in order to preserve a transition into the afterlife from a belief system that was ancient. Now, I think most of us would say that you shouldn't grave rob bones. You shouldn't move somebody from a cemetery. Grave robbers are considered awful just for stealing things that have value from inside of a coffin.
Show's staunchly anti-grave robbing.
That is correct, and that's easy to be. But if you're in a museum and now you're making profit off of someone's remains, she asked something that I hadn't considered, which is, should those bones be moved and transported to a place, no matter how ancient they are, transported to a place where they become something that is learning, profit, archaeology, that is something that is meant to be historical knowledge. And when I started thinking about it, I thought to myself, that's something that probably shouldn't be moved from where it was.
Well, there's a lot of discourse about museums in general. For example, I went to Greece over the summer, and it was sad to learn that most of the great Greek artifacts are in museums across the world. They had the dawn of civilization and modern society all born in Greece, and they don't have enough to show for it. But I think when it comes to that discussion, you need to ask yourself two questions. Are there next of kin around? Is there family connected to the victim? And also, is there a publicly financed stadium that needs to be built? And that's the only spot that they could put it. If so, perhaps, a little shove of the bone, maybe 15 feet the other way.
At what point is an artifact just junk that's getting in the way of cool things? You know what I mean? Like, we can't have old buildings around forever. What's the point? Then we'll never have cool new buildings. Everything doesn't have historical significance. It's just old.
But human bones, though, that have been placed in a certain place, I think are different than just old buildings. We were speaking of museums. Jessica, during one of the breaks after we were talking about Terrell Suggs, had an amazing sentence where she just volunteered. I've got a picture with Terrell Suggs and me at the Louvre.
I was at the Louvre studying abroad. Yes, I was one of those people that came back from study abroad, and I said cheers. Like, I pretended I was British, studied abroad in London. Anywho, I was at the Louvre, and I saw Terrell Suggs. I was with all my girlfriends, and I was like, oh my God, that's Terrell Suggs. And they were like, what? I was also like 20, 19. My friends had no idea who it was. And I was like, trust me, we have to take a picture with him. Somebody took a picture with him in front of the Louvre. And then I was like, thanks, by the way, I'm a Steelers fan. And he said something really funny to me. I can't remember what it was, but we had a moment. And then I was like, bye. And then I never saw him again.
The Louvre is that place that can also have a Doritos decal on it. Yeah.
Can people stop throwing things at the Mona Lisa? You're not doing any good.
You're
shocked. Also not doing any bad. It's behind glass. You're accomplishing literally nothing.
It was still shocking.
You're just wasting a day for tourists that want to see it, because then they have to close the room and clean up the chili or whatever it is that you guys keep throwing at glass. What are you actually accomplishing?
I love this.
What problem in the world have you solved by doing
all
this?
The patrons there are just like, like the sound when they do that.
I love how quickly the people at the Louvre sprang into action.
They have those screens. They're ready for it's a daily occurrence.
We got
they just
code
know.
Red,
yep.
Code red.
Yep.
Terrell Suggs would have stopped it.
Put it on the poll, Juju. Are you solving any of the world's problems by throwing chili at the Mona Lisa? At LeBatardShow.
I think Chris is right. I think it was something about hunger, which is like, well, you're literally wasting soup now. So
we are talking about
another hungry person.
We're talking about everything except the cause that was the protest. We're talking all around it. We're mentioning that it's chili as opposed to talking about what is being protested by throwing chili at the glass encased.
I'm going to go spaghetti there. If I'm going to try to prove a point with a food item, I'm not going to do soup. I'm going to take a handful of some meat sauce spaghetti, the pasta just dripping down the thing. I feel like that would make a better statement.
But you're just dirtying your hands.
That's true.
It's behind glass,
For a
and
cause,
then you're getting arrested.
I love Monday morning quarterbacking protesters.
Well, donate your bail money
I'm
to
doing
this
nothing,
cause.
by the way.
You're going to have to pay to get out of jail. Donate that to the cause that you're protesting. I don't think I've ever seen a protest that I'm like, you know what? I want to help this person. Yeah. Never. I see him, I'm like, you're annoying. I hope this problem gets worse.
Wow. What?
You guys also shamed Lucy for taking a shelter dog home for a day. So
That's right.
Well, you also stole a dog the same day, so.
Saved.
What is the best food to throw at the Mona Lisa? Because I think I might be with Chris Cody. Spaghetti with a lot of meat sauce. But it's not gonna stick. There's not gonna be anything.
Good spaghetti sticks to the wall.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how the pasta's cooked.
Do you have a better food of any sort that would be possible, that would be more gratifying to throw at the Mona Lisa in protest? Because
frisbeeing slices of pizza would be cool, but they're not going to stick at all.
Mashed potatoes, cool. But you want a griminess on it. You want a film that prevents others from enjoying.
You want the crowd to go,
Mona Lisa.
If you're doing steak, they're just gonna be like, "That's what are they throwing? Steak?" Like there would be no gasps.
You can't throw Cheerios; they'll just bounce right off, not make a mess.
The soup.
And it was pumpkin soup, too, so it was orange color.
I was wondering what that was.
Split pea would be good because it's green.
That's honestly what it looked kind of like.
Yeah, no, this was pumpkin.
What was the protest? What was the activism being done there by throwing soup?
Something about healthy and sustainable food.
Jessica, how was the time in the penalty box with Stugotz? Because by this time on Mondays and he came in at 1:00 in the morning last night on flights. This is the Stugotz we're gonna get now is gonna be a very tired Stugotz because he doesn't realize that he's too old to be flying all over the country like this, and it really beats him down. So we're headed into a pretty awful slalom stretch here with Stugotz.
And then the Dead and Company residency starts. It's gonna be a long year ahead of us. But to be fair, I didn't go in the penalty box. I actually had to go pee-pee.
Okay, so you made it look like you were suffering the penalty, but you didn't actually go and do anything.
Well, he's laying across he's taking a nap. Where would I even be right now? Let's be honest. He's tripping balls.
Look at him, Mike. Look at do you still love that we're approaching 20 years? It's going to be this year. It will be 20 years that we have been doing this show together. And we love him in spite of him. And look at him there. Do you look at him as he sleeps there on the couch and look at him?
He's adorable.
Him snuggling his head up into that pillow
nice.
was a little cute.
He is cute.
Yeah, he is, and that's how he gets away with being just generally rotten to his core. At least on Mondays. Tuesdays, he's a little bit better.
Just an awful man.
Yeah, so we have that to look forward to. Tuesday is generally his strongest day.
Because Greg Cody's here.
So by comparison, he's...
Yeah.
Poor Greg. I still feel bad about that.
Put that picture up one more time of Greg Cody looking older than he has ever looked.